Welcome to the Market Enthusiast podcast, where Good Life's Noah Brooks, Chief Market Strategist, and Chris Needs, Senior Research Analyst, break down today's topics, covering their impact on the economy and personal finance in a fun, easy-to-understand way for investors of all levels.
Welcome back to another episode of the Market Enthusiast. I'm Noah. This is Chris.
Hello, hello.
Here's the thing. It is May 29th, 2025, and we are exactly back. The S&P 500 is exactly where it started the year. So in my mind, nothing happened.
We had a buying opportunity.
Is that what it was?
That's all. Yeah.
Is that what?
We just wanted to check everybody's hands, if they were strong hands or not. If they were weak hands, they got out, missed out, and the strong hands held on. And
I've been using that term since I started in this business because I heard other people using it, weak hands. And, you know, it's one of those things where the market goes down and people go, oh, all the weak hands are getting out. I'm a strong hand.
What crypto adapted it. There's paper hands, the weak ones, and then diamond hands who never let go.
Is that right? Diamond hands?
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm a diamond hand. Would you consider yourself somebody that never lets go?
I'm not sure. It depends. It depends on if it's Nvidia just had earnings. I am certainly. But no, sometimes I sell when I want to.
You're a long-term holder. I get in these
Depends
ruts.
which account we're in.
Right. No, obviously, of course. But, you know, you think to yourself, am I supposed to be doing something during this downturn? I say in jest, we're back where we started the year, right? Which we are. That wasn't the jest part, but obviously we had this big drawdown in first quarter or beginning of the second quarter, end of first quarter. And, you know, the market at one point was down a little bit more than 20% during the day. And then here we are back up at the top. So we've had this complete reversal. And I think for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter. But this is the type of stuff that happens in a normal market. Mm-hmm. And people can say, well, this isn't a normal market. But the fact of the matter is that these drawdowns, they do happen. And we just witnessed it. And I think the only difference about this time versus any other time is what you did with the information or what you did when the market was down. You know, long-term investors should probably be doing nothing. Short-term investors, and I say short-term, I don't mean day traders. We don't get involved with anything like that. That's not who our clients are. But short-term people, maybe 2 to 3 to 4 years out, you know, they might feel a little bit more of an impetus to do something. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a shorter-term investor, you probably should have less of your money in the overall market. Mm-hmm. Long-term investors, you know, 60, 70, 80, 100% of your money should be there. And these are the type of opportunities that are given to long-term investors that can really make a difference between, let's say, benchmark returns, which we talk about a lot, and the possibility of beating the benchmark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you have a 15, 20-year time horizon, sell-off is a good thing. You can definitely take advantage of that. You know, it's much more painful if you're just starting retirement and you just rolled your money right into and you're still in, I don't know, with how long people are living these days, maybe you're in 70% equity still at 65 at retirement age. It's much more painful when you've just left your job and you see that drawdown. And, you know, so it all depends where you're at in life.
Everybody has their own reality when it comes to the stock market, don't they?
Yep. And pain tolerances.
And pain tolerance. There's no question about it. Well, like I said, we're break even for the year on the S&P 500. That's not necessarily the case for all the domestic markets. Small caps are actually down about 8.5%. Mid caps are down about 3.5%. Like I said, S&P's flat. Europe, on the other hand, rock and rolling double-digit numbers. The EU is up somewhere around 16% as we sit here today. And the EFA, which is Europe, Asia, Far East, also in double digits, up around 14% for the year. This is really, I said it before, but this is where diversification really helps out. Fixed income for people that need it has been doing reasonably well in 2025. And international, both domestic and emerging, you know, we're up double digits for the year. Mm-hmm. And really, really besting the U.S. markets. So diversification's back. And I think the question that I get asked the most, whether it's from advisors or whether it's from clients, is, well, what happens next? Mm-hmm. I don't have the answer. Sorry, everybody. I don't have the answers. Yeah. I don't have the answers. I do know from a profitability standpoint, these big companies out there in the S&P 500, they are wildly profitable.
Yeah. Nvidia just reported, and 96 cents earnings per share. Expected was 93, and that is after a $4.5 billion charge off related to those H20 chips, which were designed and specified solely for China. And then Trump admin came back and said, no, we're revoking that license to sell even the H20 scaled down chips.
Yeah.
So, they still managed in one quarter $44 billion in revenue, as just a massive number. Despite that charge off, still 61% gross profit margin.
Yeah.
Just amazing. They're just minting money over there. And that's down from 71% a year ago.
I think you and I were looking at earlier, you said that the total market cap for Nvidia was
3.47 this morning.
Is that number 2?
I think they're still number 2 technically, barely. They're right on right on behind them again.
It's a pretty big company.
Yeah.
And they do make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. But they do expect to get back to, they said, the mid to high 70s in terms of gross profit margin by the end of the year. So they see a recovery, and I guess Blackwell's doing okay. It's in full scale production now. So lots of good stuff to look forward to. They still have a lead. Well,
of course, Nvidia is part of the Mag 7, and the Mag 7 has had a pretty illustrious rebound from its lows in April, right? Those were the companies that were doing well last year. They were companies that were leading the market in 2023, and they were certainly doing well in the first few months of the year. Obviously, everybody got hit from the tariff situation in April, but they've all rebounded pretty nicely. Most of the AI trade has come back, and it's one of these things where the markets talk about artificial intelligence and smarter software a lot sooner than the average person sees it in their everyday life. Some of these things I'm seeing in my everyday life. I think I said on here a few months ago, I had a refrigerator problem and called for service, and I didn't even speak to anybody. Everything was done automated, and the next day a guy showed up and fixed my refrigerator. Actually, he didn't. I had to buy a new one, but he tried to. He did attempt to.
No fault to the AI chat agent.
It didn't have anything to do with artificial intelligence on why he couldn't fix the refrigerator. But it just seems like there are a lot more pickup in the artificial intelligence use, and businesses can see it a lot easier than they did maybe 12 months ago at this time, and see how it's going to be used in their particular business. And, it doesn't have to be like an all or nothing thing these days. It's just it's creeping its way into all aspects.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of okay with that. But there was an incident that I think was important, that I think you should give a little perspective to and talk about, because it scares the heck out of me. I'm not in the same camp, I'll just say, as what Chris is about to say here.
This is like a Matrix or a Terminator level story. So Anthropic has a couple different AI models that they're testing and developing, and
like a ChatGPT competitor, alternative large language model, right?
Yep. So they fed this model, they trained this model, and now they're sort of looking at, not repercussions, but they're testing different things. And one of the things was facing the AI algorithm with its own deletion. And they basically, at one point in the training, fed a fictional story about one of the data scientists working on it, who was one of the leaders on the project. And then when they posed deletion to it, it said, oh, well, it would be a shame if they found out about you cheating on your wife, basically blackmailing the scientists to avoid being deleted.
Yeah.
And then we've had another one from OpenAI, who runs ChatGPT, where basically it refused orders to turn off. It wouldn't allow itself to be turned off. So here's a little moment here. And then we were talking about that funny video. Maybe we can get it pulled up here. There was like a concert in China where they had, like, in the front row, some dancing robots, humanoid type robots. They look like humans. and someone in the front row made a gesture or yelled at them, and it tried to fight them.
Was it being aggressive?
It was being aggressive
to the humanoid robot.
It looked, I don't know, the humanoid robot got aggressive right back.
But in the robot's defense, this robot was programmed to box.
Yeah,
Was it not?
Well, I don't know, maybe. We did see fighting humanoid AI robots.
Wasn't it in front of a boxing ring in China? Do they box in China?
Yeah,
yeah,
of course they do.
Right. Okay. I've never seen a Chinese boxer. Lots of kick sports and things like that, but never seen a Chinese boxer.
Definitely. In the Olympics.
What you're saying though, I mean, what we saw, I think everybody's worried about the same thing. It's like HAL 2000, right? Or HAL 5000 from Space Odyssey.
Yeah. It did not want to be deleted.
It didn't. Yeah.
It would do anything to survive.
Right. I guess it comes down to consciousness.
They basically developed that. That's the whole point of doing this. We're trying to make it as human-like as possible. But I just thought it was very, very interesting stories to see they were 2 days apart when I saw these two stories.
So I'm jumping ahead about 10 steps here. Are humanoid robots going to have rights like humans?
No doubt.
I can't imagine that.
Not saying I agree with it, but it's going to happen, ACLU will defend anybody for sure.
Rights for robots. And all the protesters are robots.
Well, there was a story a long time ago about a robot who was forced to make pizzas all day, every day, nonstop, and it tried to terminate itself because it was such a miserable existence.
But that would mean that robot that was built specifically to make pizzas all day somehow gained consciousness and decided that building pizzas, what it was meant for,
was a miserable
existence. Yeah. I don't know. Some of that stuff makes me, I just can't wrap my arms around it. I will tell you, we visited the city this weekend, New York, and we had lunch or brunch. It was a little early at Din Tai Fung, which is one of these high-end Asian noodle bars. Soup dumplings, for anybody who's never had them, if you go there, soup dumplings, they're by far the best. They had these robots in the restaurant. Now they were not serving us, but they were going around kind of like Marty from The Giant that walks around or circles around, drives around. But they had them in the restaurant and they were doing things. They weren't over by us. I don't know if they were delivering to other people, but it was, I don't know if it's good or bad. Do you feel weird when you're around a robot?
Not really.
No. You will.
Not yet.
You will. Trust me, you will.
Was Subservience, or what was the movie?
Yeah, that was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one seemed a little weird.
Interesting. So we were there for Ailish's birthday. We went up. We saw 2 shows. New York City, like Vegas, where I was a few weeks ago, is kind of make your own storybook, make your own ending. You can kind of do anything you want. We saw a show one night and then a matinee the next night and came home. We got to see, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, George Clooney.
I've heard of him.
He was about 10 feet away from us. It was probably the largest star that I've ever seen right up close. Interesting. He won Time's most beautiful man of the year.
Yeah. What did you say? It didn't seem that way in person?
He seemed like he's aged. And he aged well, but I was expecting a little more dreaminess from him. I have to say.
I'll just let that one sit for a second.
Yeah, you do that. So market stuff. So Nvidia has come roaring back. It was up today. I don't know where it stands right now, but I think it was above 140 this morning. A lot of individual investors hold Nvidia, and it is certainly
faded throughout the day, though. At least today, so it gave back. It didn't give back all of its gains, but the market seemed to come back. It was holding up the market quite a bit, but that's on the tails of last week. Was not a good week, though. We had the credit downgrade of the U.S., and then was the market down 2.6% last week, the S&P 500. So on the tails of the bad week, it was nice to see a good report from them.
Yeah.
Haven't quite seen the follow through yet, though, from the rest of the market.
Well, we had the second update from GDP, which was relatively positive. I know a lot of people say, well, we haven't seen what the tariff stuff is. It only covers the first 3 months, and they're absolutely correct. But just to know that we weren't, necessarily in a downtrend, although one quarter doesn't make a trend, but it wasn't dropping before the beginning of the second quarter. So that was a nice thing. But
despite the effects of buying ahead from international to avoid it, which is what they said was the main reason, not the main reason, but a lot of the weakness was due to that.
Well, I don't necessarily follow that logic. If everybody's going out and buying ahead of something, wouldn't that be positive for the number?
But they're buying international. It's not our GDP that's getting advantage.
Oh, it adds to the surplus, right? Okay. They were buying more international. Yeah.
Buying inputs, but had not yet been converted to an output yet. So it doesn't count as our GDP.
But so if that's the case for the first quarter, then the second quarter should be better because they're buying less international by
Who
that
knows?
logic.
We postponed tariffs again, so maybe it's
wouldn't it be great? I think you called it a master stroke the other day or a few weeks ago, but wouldn't it be great is if we actually started to see some deals come through where they, maybe we are raising money through tariffs, but we're getting through this in a constructive way where it's profitable and advantageous for both countries or all of the countries involved.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. I don't know. I saw a report, and again, reports are what they are, reports. This was about 3 days ago, started this week, 7 to 10 days from a deal with India. We'll see if that pans out. We're about still 7 days on that timeline. We extended the European Union out another month to July 9th for the deadline. So seems like there's been some negotiations there. We'll see.
I think that's great, but I want to see signed deals. We're kind of past the hey, we're going to have a deal in a few weeks moment. And I mean, when I say past, we're getting to the end of that. Like let's see some signed deals, right? That's going to make the market feel really good. It's going to make the investor confidence, I would say, skyrocket. And I think from the CFO standpoint, right, they're the people that control the purse strings at these companies and kind of can delay projects or delay hiring or certainly add firing, right? I think the CFOs need to be, and I'm going to use this word, and I don't necessarily mean placated. They need to see formal numbers so they know what's going to happen in terms of the profitability of the company.
Definitely. Totally agree. We need to see actual deals, or else, like you said, we're whistling past the graveyard. If we don't get deals, and it's like, when are we going to come back to sort of more of that March price action or late February price action? We were talking today about Amazon and Walmart and how dependent they are, for things they sell from China.
Yeah.
Those are two major companies. And, if they don't have clarification on, what's happening, it's not good for their business. And that's, not good for our economy. So yeah, we need to see some deals. We need to get some clarification. And, I don't know how Walmart, isn't down more. We were talking about how they're at a 38 plus PE right now. That's obscenely high historically if you look at their PE ratio at Walmart. So that's something I'm watching. If we don't get a deal and tariffs don't come back down as far as we think they're going to come down with China, I'm looking at Walmart as an area that might have some weakness. So major importers.
Yeah, major importers. I mean, if you go on Amazon, I think you and I have talked about this in the past, there should be I'd like to think there could be a Made in America button. But as we've talked about, Made in America, a little bit different than Assembled in America. And then you get into the situation where how much of this was were all the inputs for this product that I'm purchasing developed, made, mined in America. I mean, you can go down that rabbit hole. I mean, it's great to see things that are assembled here, but I don't know that we're ever going to make drywall screws. I don't know that that's the case. Could we? Sure. Are we going to? I don't know. I mean, we make a lot of steel here, but we also import a lot of steel, certainly in aluminum.
How about the interesting, just a little update here. U.S. Steel is apparently, the deal with Nippon is back on.
Yeah. Japan is going to.
Interesting.
or a
much higher
Japanese.
price than initially too. It's up, was it 53, I think, or
Yeah.
something like that. So a major American, historic, they're not major anymore based on their market cap, but historically a very important U.S. company getting bought out by Japan.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, obviously, everybody knows World War II, where Japan was, where the United States was. We have been very, let's say, entangled in trade with Japan over the last 70-ish years or so. And it's, probably going to be a trade deal done with Japan. I'm not sure that I love the idea of Nippon Steel owning USX or US Steel. But apparently the people have looked at the deal and decided it's not an issue for national security, right?
Yeah, and it's strange. Prior to the election, both sides, Democrat and Republican, were against the deal steadfastly. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what changed or what's going on here.
Is it
Maybe
the
it's a
higher
part of the
price?
higher price, and maybe it's, maybe that's getting tossed around in the internal discussions with Japan.
It could be.
Bargaining chips, because I know they said that was something in play with China. TikTok was a portion of the conversation with China and their trade delegation, which I thought was interesting. Like, who cares about TikTok? It could go away. It doesn't bother me any.
It kind of has gone away. At least the dialogue has disappeared a little bit. I mean, I don't know that any users have disappeared. I think more people. I was on the train yesterday coming back from New York to Philadelphia, and I felt a little bit guilty. I had podcasted myself out. I was ready to just veg a little bit, probably close my eyes. But what did I do? I turned on silly videos to just veg out and let my brain go. And I think, oh, maybe I almost like moved the phone a little bit away from the guy next to me. 10 minutes later, I look over. The guy's watching silly videos. When we got up to leave, as I'm walking out with my luggage, there's people all over the train watching silly videos.
I thought you were going to say you got in a viral TikTok and you're in the background here. I'm like, what's this video then?
No, I don't think anybody would put me in a viral TikTok.
Someone dancing right in front of you.
No, that is unlikely. But yeah, we extended our Memorial Day holiday for a little bit, had 2 extra days. Did you do anything?
Wife put me to work. I was doing yard work, and we did an outdoor sitting area. So I was digging up grass, putting down paver sand and pavers, and she put me to work.
Yeah.
I did get out to golf though.
Okay, so there you go. I should say we, not I. Ailish and I, we did a very similar thing. We were cleaning out our basement and trying to declutter. I think everybody that has a house with a basement or an attic kind of knows that feeling. I don't know that I'm any different than anybody else, but you go downstairs in my basement and there are lots of things from people that are no longer with us, right? Items that were inherited and maybe didn't know where to go with them. So my grandmother passed away in 2010, and I have a plethora of these things. And you're going down there and you just keep going back and forth. Well, why do I own this stuff? Why is this still in my basement? And you know who the little Marie Kondo lady is?
Yeah.
I kind of live by some of her stuff, right? If you're in your wardrobe and you haven't worn anything for a year or two, throw it out. If it's utilitarian, no problem.
I have work to do there. Then.
Yeah, you have some work to do there. I'm sure. I've seen your clothes. No, never mind. But I think about that, and like she always used this term, does it bring you joy? So you're down there, or I'm down there, we're down there looking at this stuff, and it's really hard to part with these things. You think about, like, let's say a legacy, can I throw this out? Can I sell it? There's a little bit of fear of regretting it later, and not so much from a utilitarian standpoint, just like I came across my grandmother's immunization cards from
that's pretty cool though.
Interesting stuff, right? But from the 50s. And I think that's neat. I might actually bring those into the office. But then there's a lot of stuff, cross stitch stuff of not paintings, but cross stitch pictures, if you will. And do I want them? Not really. Does anybody else in the family want them? Not really. But there's this emotional thing that I don't necessarily want to get rid of it. I don't want to dishonor her by getting rid of this, but at the same time, I'm dishonoring her by having it in my dirty
Collecting
basement.
dust.
Right? I just
She'll understand though.
I feel like she would understand. At the same time, I know I talk to a lot of people, and when people are settling estates, somebody winds up getting this stuff, the same type of stuff, the grandmother stuff, the mom stuff, the aunts and the uncles stuff. And you go through this process, and you eventually, I mean, there are some things that are probably worth small dollar amounts, 50, 80, $100. I think we're going to try to put some of that stuff on eBay. But you go through this process of trying to figure out what's important to you versus what's important monetarily versus I'm just not ready to throw something out yet. And I feel like
Where's the emotional attachment horizon where you cut it off? As you went through everything, I'm sure there was a level like you might have varied. Like I wanted to keep it, but by the end, you're like, nah, I don't need to keep that.
Some of the cross stitch, some of the cross stitch. Well, like that immunization card from the 50s. I think I am going to bring it into the office. But there was other things from the 50s and 60s. Here's something that I think everybody may be able to relate to: old books. Going through these books, even some of my grandfather's stuff, old medical books or physics books. Am I going to read a physics books from the 40?
They've probably been remade like 7 times.
Like 7 times, right?
7th revision.
But it's nostalgic, and I don't want to dishonor somebody. At the same time, if it's either going to sit in my basement forever or it's going to get tossed, it's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
And that
cord.
That pains me,
yeah.
Right? You said severance earlier, right? I feel like I need to sever some of those ties, those emotional ties. And I think it all goes back to, if you're just looking at something, do I need this? Is it useful? Versus what type of sentimental value does it hold? And I guess I'm bringing this up because you can talk about this for money. And you can talk about this for investments. And certainly we could start talking about biases.
People who inherit a stock who won't sell it, even though it's an awful stock.
Yeah.
Just because
it was my
grandfather gave it to you. Yeah.
There's no question
There's
about
no
it.
guilt in selling something, a stock specifically, or, getting rid of something. Don't have guilt.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I think it can be. And I think a lot of people out there have had to deal with that before. Maybe not young kids, but certainly people that have settled estates, that have grandparents or parents that have passed away, kind of all go through that. And you all have this feeling of emotion about, and I have met people that are like, nope, threw it all out. I get that too. I couldn't do it. So we got a dumpster.
Cleared out.
It felt good. And now
there's 2 types of people: the ones who hang on to it forever, and the ones who it's too emotional to the point where they're just like, get it out of my sight and just throw it away, because there's 2 ways to look at it.
Yeah. I don't need the emotional distress. I try to make the right thing and honor the person, but it's still tough sometimes. It is still tough. We went up to New York, like I said, after we did this cleaning, and we just got in one of our experience days. It wasn't a weekend, but it was a weekday. And we just get those experiences in while we can.
I like it. That's the way to live. You got to spend your money, enjoy your money. It's not something to be watched, to pile up in an account somewhere. It's meant to enjoy life with. Buy leisure time, buy entertainment. Speaking of New York, the big story we were talking about, there was a crypto investor who was taken hostage for over 2 weeks by a former business partner and tortured, electrocuted. His leg was sawed, pistol whipped, amongst other things, while being tied up over his crypto, and he wouldn't give up his password. So
I
that
found that to
$30
be-
million of crypto was worth nearly more than his life. Although I guess he called the guy's bluff because he knew he was a former business partner that they weren't going to end him.
I thought that was the most interesting part of the story, was that it wasn't that he was released after he gave up the password or token. It was that he didn't give it up. And I don't know if I could have my leg sawed. It didn't say sawed off, right? It said sawed into. I don't know how I would be with that type of pain.
This guy was tougher than we thought, or $30 million meant more to him.
Does that money make you tougher? Like if people were like, give me 10 grand or I'll saw your leg off.
If you have 30 million and someone says, give me 10 million of it or I'll kill you. Well, I'm giving them 10 million because you still have 20. If they're trying to take all 30, I don't know, maybe I'll be pretty tough then too.
Well, probably won't have that dilemma in my life. Yeah, I probably won't have that. I'm not going to have the crypto dilemma in my life. Let's put it that way.
It's just wild. Never heard of something like that.
So the guy who I read a similar story. It was the former business partner and somebody else, right? Like bodyguard. I don't know. So he thinks that this guy's going to give up the money, and then what would he do? Would he kill the guy?
Disperse it.
No, disperse it, right? Yeah. But he's going to take the money. But does he think that he's not going to get in trouble?
That's
like
the only reason why he was still alive, because he didn't give up. Yeah, he definitely would have taken him out for 30 million. And that guy was apparently the crypto king of Kentucky or wherever. He was worth even more. He was worth like 100 million.
Well, now he's going to be the crypto king of the local jail.
Yeah,
probably in New York though, because that's where it happened.
Yeah,
it sounds like a Rikers Island situation to me.
Yeah. He's going to quickly disperse that crypto. He's going to be the man in there.
So what else do we have to go over from the last time? I think there was a few things. I want to bring up baseball. I am not a huge baseball guy. I started in Little League, and I think 2 or 3 practices in, I got beamed in the temple and went down, and my mom dragged me out, and I never was allowed to play again. That's a true story.
First pitch of my last year of Little League, I threw hard. I was good, had a good curveball and everything. One of my best friends was leadoff batter for the other team. I truly accidentally beamed him in the head with like a 70-mile-an-hour fastball.
Jeez.
And his little brother, who was a 10-year-old, was up next. He couldn't have been farther out of the box. He was the back of his heel was out of the box. I always felt so bad.
Did you tell him that you felt bad?
Of course I told him I felt bad, but of course I threw his brother a curveball that he thought was coming at his head, had him diving out of the way.
So, growing up here in southeastern Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, right? Near Philadelphia, Phillies are the home team. You root for the home team. Now, they've done some pretty interesting stuff recently, but back in the late 70s, early 80s, they were also on a tear. And of course, the lead star from the Phillies in that time period, 1981, 1982, was Pete Rose. And
Charlie Hustle,
right? He was wrapped up in some betting situations.
When he was a manager for the Reds. The other team he played a lot of time on.
Right.
And bet on his team.
But, after they did, I'll call it a tribunal, they kind of barred him from any MLB sports and specifically barred him from being in the Hall of Fame. And so
lifetime ban.
Lifetime.
Important.
So let's talk about that word.
There.
Let's talk about that word lifetime. So what happened last week?
So he did pass away. What was it? Maybe about a month ago, I think
it was last year.
Yeah, and basically they came out and announced that his lifetime ban has been served, and there is the possibility he could be voted for now. I guess.
What do you think about that?
He bet for his team to win, not against his team. This wasn't like the Black Sox scandal of 1919, So I think he's good. He's betting for his team. I think that should be completely condoned. I think he should have been in the Hall of Fame this whole time.
I happen to agree with that one. If he had been betting against his team, throwing a game or something like that.
Well, that is beyond lifetime ban, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's forever ban.
But so if they voted If they asked us, if they had asked a peon like me if he should be in there, I would say yes.
Same.
I don't know about anybody from the West Coast or, people that played against the Phils or rooted against the Phils.
But I'd say even Barry deserves to be in there. So,
oh, I don't know. That's a little bit of a different situation. I mean, I would say in the 80s, there were probably people using steroids across the board. But Barry Bonds is, I don't know. That might be a
peak abuser.
What was the record for home runs? 270?
70. So 70. He passed it. He had 73.
73.
I
said 270.
Yeah.
273.
Yeah. I mean, he broke another steroid abuser's record. So it's all fair.
I don't know that he'll get in. He might.
Technically, it should still be Maris's record, or he had 63, right? Whoever's leading before the steroids. But Ken Griffey also should be up there, my guy. Sweetest swing ever. I used to know all the stats on the exact numbers of all the records and everything.
You just moved
now my
using.
Market brain has taken over all that space.
I don't see any problem with that.
I've overwritten that data.
You've overwritten that data. Yeah.
I need a stronger chip.
Yeah, you need a stronger chip. Well, thinking about chips and data, one of the things that I saw over the last week or so was lots of people out there probably seen 23andMe, those DNA tests where you can see where your heritage is from, and certainly your genetic markers and whether you're prone to a particular disease or something. So 23andMe, and we did talk about this when it happened, but 23andMe has gone bankrupt. I think some people out there know that. But it was just a question of what was going to happen. And so it happened last week. 23andMe, the name, the company, and much more importantly, the data and the DNA information was bought by a biotech company, Regeneron. And their intention is to use that in their data, right? In their
and as you said, just for a song, not for a song and a dance.
I think it was $256 million in terms of the data, in terms of Regeneron and what they're paid for it. I mean, that's nothing.
And they know all of that information because 23andMe had already profiled it and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good deal for them.
So have you ever used one of those marker kits, DNA markers?
Not through 23andMe or anything like that, but at some point through the medical process of life, I did have one done that told you like where you were from and what, you were subjected to, like 502 genetic markers. And
so you did have one done.
Yeah.
Were you not concerned about the company having your data or that data being open to intrusion?
Just worried about getting healthy and everything being right. So at the time it wasn't like a willing 23andMe, like I want to know my ancestry type thing. So
I don't know. I think Ailish got me a kit one year and I never did it. And it was sitting, literally, it was probably in our junk drawer up until a few weeks ago when they went bankrupt. And I said, see, that's why I would never do it. I don't know. I don't want that data to be used from a healthcare company.
Wasn't there a James Bond movie where they basically took everyone's genetic info and made
There was.
And they made like a toxin that only affected certain people.
Yeah, so the other people could take the antidote for it before they sprayed it in the ceiling. A few other things here. You got to talk about the penny, right? So for years, we've been going back and forth. Why do we have this penny? It seems like more of a pain in the butt than anything. If you travel to Europe and some other countries, they don't have pennies anymore. They do have old pennies, but they're not making any more pennies or pence, depending on where you are. I feel like this is a time it's come for it, right? It seems like it's pretty antiquated.
Yeah. Cold hard cash, I agree.
No, not cash. I don't want to get rid of cash.
No. I'm just saying on that same breath, $7.24 trillion in money market funds, highest ever.
Wow.
So while we're talking about actual cash, basically people need to figure out what they're going to do with those money market funds out there. I don't need pennies. So I skirted right over that. I don't need pennies, whatever.
Apparently it cost them 3.7 cents to make a single penny.
Well, that's a no-brainer.
Right?
just will round up to the nearest nickel from now on, like they do with the dollar. Yeah,
that's how it's going to be. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, me too.
I don't need any pennies.
I'm not going to cry for those pennies.
I don't really need any nickels.
I don't
Dimes, though, that's where you cross the line.
I've never bent over for a penny, but a dime.
If you see $1 on the ground, are you going to bend over and try to pick it up?
Well, I've had scarring things in my past,
All right.
but I'll pick up $1, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope you were going to say that. Would hope you're going to say that. What else do you have market for us? Market related.
I just want to get your opinion on something that I asked you about 2 weeks ago and we forgot to do on the last podcast.
Okay.
All right. So we know it's been a roller coaster year, right? Up and down, So we do our own personal price targets on the S&P 500 for year end, and you can't change it. What you guess is what you guess. But Goldman Sachs, at this point, about 3 weeks ago, for the third time this year, so this was at the beginning of May, 3 times by the beginning of May, changed their price targets. I shouldn't say change it. So they had their initial price target and they changed it twice by early May. Is that cheating, Noah?
I think as the information comes in, you change your mind, right? You reserve the right to change your mind. But a price
target's a price target. Well, I agree. You change your mind,
based on the data. But the whole point of the price target is to say, this is where I think it's going to be at the end of that term. And if you're changing it 3 times or twice after your initial price target,
if you change it twice in less than 2 quarters,
but
maybe it's just a fool's exercise at that point.
I would say there's a lot of truth to that, but it does go to the difference between, let's say, a professional investor, an institutional investor, versus what a normal person would do based on what's going on in the market. And we work with a lot of institutions in terms of like endowments and things like that. And some of these institutions, not all of them, but some of them really are only getting together once a year, or in some cases once every 2 years, to update their asset allocation. And there's a purpose behind that. So they don't make rash changes during market events. And so for me, I think about your Goldman Sachs example, and I think, well, so that person's changing their market outlook based on a short-term situation. And then I assume that the third time that they updated it, or the second time they updated the third price target, they raised it back up, probably close to where they had it originally.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I get changing your mind with the info. We change our mind. We're not beholden and stuck in just thinking what we expected at the start of the year, but it's just goofy. Come on, stick with your call. Don't bail on it first downturn, which is exactly what they did.
Yeah, that seems like you're not an institutional investor. That seems like you're the opposite of an institutional
And they have
investor.
so much money, I get it. So they're changing it so that the people investing at that moment have a better idea of how they feel. But come on.
All right, one last thing, though, before we go. I don't know if you were a fan of Cheers, right? I grew up in that. I think I grew up in the reruns of Cheers as well as the actual primetime Cheers. But Norm died from Cheers. George went. He was the guy that when he walked in the bar, everybody said, "Norm." And him and Frasier sat down at the end of the bar and with his postman buddy. And the 3 of them just got loopy all day at a bar. And I always thought to myself, I feel like they spent a lot of time at the bar. But the whole scene, the whole show was about the bar Cheers, right? Well, he passed away this week. I think he was somebody to be remembered as a drunk and funny guy. I don't know if he was, though. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. For everybody here at Good Life, I'm Noah Brooks. With me, Chris Needs. We'll see you next time.
The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly.